Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Trader Group, and this is your end of day recap for Thursday, September 12th. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes. It's not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going over is for education purposes only. So, really nice follow through from yesterday, from that big reversal day yesterday. Looking at the performance for the day, everything really strong in terms of the equity indices. We had today the small caps led. They've been underperforming, and they kind of took the ball and ran with it a bit. IWM was up 1.3%. The Qs were also up 1%. They rallied essentially. Markets kind of came into today flattish and had, like I said, just some nice follow through after being kind of quiet in the overnight market. SPY finished up 80 basis points. I'll go through some technicals. I'll go through a couple different charts. We'll talk about some trades, and just really, I think impressive. That's what I kind of come away with over the last few days of what we've seen. Here's the chart of SPY. Kind of cutting through back above all these moving averages, one by one, right? And a little bit of, it's kind of interesting because the way that this was looking yesterday, just to take a step back and look, what we experienced in September, right, was we had this big move down. We had a couple days last week where we tried to rally and fail, and then of course on Friday we really took another leg lower. This week we had two inside days, and then it looked like, hey, this might be a continuation of like what we saw in the middle of last week too, and buyers really took hold and defended those lows, and had that big reversal day yesterday, getting us into the 20-day moving average. We hesitated there a little bit up until what I think around like midday, and really kind of took off. Here was the reversal, of course, from yesterday, and then here you go. Here's what I'm referring to. Kind of just a little bit of sideways. This was where we were this morning. Kind of came in a little bit, giving again a little bit of a dip for entry purposes, not breaking down, and we broke above that value area. This was again right around like the lunchtime time, and added to it. Had two strong candles for two hours during the day, and then consolidated at the end of the day. But overall, if you're kind of holding some positions, I right from the start today, I thought that there was a lot of good. That there was a lot of good participation, particularly in some growth names today. And, I'll start with a couple here. And I'm just going to go through and also show the Qs, which also kind of went sideways here and then really strong. And by the way, there's a VPOC up here at 476.22 if you're looking for some next upside levels. And same thing with SPY. We did not take out this VPOC up here, but we're getting pretty close, right? And that's about 0.4 of a percentage point away. Again, the 1 hour chart shows the value area for the week, and yeah, so that's where we are. So yeah, this is where I thought things were pretty darn constructive, like even in the beginning of the day. CAVA, which I believe is the strongest name in the restaurant space. And by the way, the restaurants have been very strong this week. There's been a few of them that have been participating very nicely. I think Sweet Green has had a very nice move from those lows, coming back quite nicely. And again, I kind of, one of the things that you'll find in my end of day videos is I talk a lot about relative strength. I only, I stay away from the names that are in downtrends. I don't try to anticipate turns and downtrends. I leave that for somebody else. I really kind of stick to the strongest names, right? And that's, for me, that's what it's all about, is going after names that putting the best players on the field, not messing around with turnaround stories. But everybody has a different style. There's multiple ways to make money in this market. I stick to the best names out there, the names that had really good earnings or really good sales, and kind of go from there. But that brings me to the next. So that's restaurants, and then shoes. I mean, look at this move in ONON, and I really like this pullback. This is a name that I got long in a couple different accounts. More recently, just one of them yesterday. I got long in the TTG trend portfolio, but I really started to kind of like what this was doing when the rest of the market was breaking down. Sometimes the market gives you those little hints where if you go side by side and you're looking at what the overall market is doing, and you find a couple names, even like something like this, which is a growth name, and it was really holding in there pretty well. Now it flirted with kind of breaking down intraday, but by the time the day was over, it really kind of stood its ground. So this was a nice winner for me, and I took this off into today's strength. But again, I have it on in another account. For my trading account, I'm being a little bit quicker with taking some targets right now, and I'll explain why. But really impressive. And what I find is also like a fascinating chart too is I know some people have been talking about Nike and about the possibility of an activist getting involved. But if you've been playing this trend, right, where ONON is kind of eating Nike's lunch here a little bit. I mean, look at the relationship between ONON and Nike. So clearly there's some market share that's being gained. At least that's what this chart tells me, is that ONON is taking market share away from Nike. So again, I find that a very interesting relationship that's going on. Going on to NVIDIA, of course, this looking at the weekly chart in NVIDIA, I think is really strong looking. Here's what we did here. I'm kind of going backwards here with the 1 hour chart. Nice continuation breakout here. And, again, it's kind of the situation where you have a little bit of a catalyst, and you had a stock that was, I don't want to say real beaten up, but, clearly went down a lot. But, they had the catalyst where they were speaking at the Goldman Sachs conference and really got the stock to get going. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to kind of get back to this range, but, I think dips will continue to get bought. I mean, this name has seen a mountain of call activity. But hesitating there right around those two moving averages, the 20 and the 50. And again, I remain bullish on this company long term. I have a position in the TTG trend portfolio, but don't have anything on right now in my trading account. Let's continue to kind of talk about a couple of the other bigger tech names. Microsoft, which speaking of call activity, this is another one that's seen some big blocks of calls. I think we saw it was about 2 weeks ago where we saw February calls. I think they were a little bit early on that, but they gave it plenty of time, right? And today the order that I saw was, I think it was March calls, and I think it was about $20 million. These were the March 450 calls. 9,000 of them went up for $21, right? So where is 450 on the chart? Well, look at that, right at that VPOC up there, right? Do you think that VPOC could be taken out by March? I do, and I think obviously it could happen way before then. And if you're long those March 450 calls, you obviously do want it to happen. But let's keep it simple here. Let's forget about that would be a real nice move up to here. And is that from the weekly chart? And by the way, look. Take a look at this weekly chart in Microsoft. Now we only have one more day of the week, so I'm cheating here and looking at the weekly candle. But I have to say that's a pretty good looking candle that's forming there. Holding this support, holding the trend line, which you could use this 50 period moving average on this particular chart. And I have to say, like, I really like the what's going on here. How this is developing. We're hearing a lot about OpenAI and how much revenue they're going to make. And of course, Microsoft owns a chunk of that, right? So watch this 425 level. I think that will be important, but ultimately, I like what's going on here. Meta is another one that's seen, saw some calls yesterday, had a real nice move. This is going to have to, similar to NVIDIA, is going to have to contend with this resistance up here. Maybe this can continue to rally, and maybe does, it gets up to that resistance area. That's what I think for this stock. But ultimately, some really nice, some really nice moves out of that space. A couple, I've been watching a couple software names and, talking about, a couple different things like this Fair Isaac. Talk about a name that needs a stock split, but look at the dip in this one and right back out to new highs, right? And then, so I mentioned I was going to go through a couple charts. Before I go through some more single names, as I tend to get sidetracked, but here's RSP. Remember, we've talked a lot about RSP making new highs. Notice this is actually breaking back above its September value area. So, again, this is more of a diverse look at what the S&P is doing. S&P 500 SPY is market cap weighted, RSP is equally weighted, right? And what you could see is that we've had some, this would be very nice if this continues to break higher like this. One other area, we knew for a while that it was mainly the low volatility equities, consumer staples, utilities, healthcare, REITs, right? Insurance companies, defense companies, acting really well. This is kind of taken a break here, and it's let some other areas participate, right? And that's kind of what's been going on here too over the last week, right? This is the SPLV ETF, which I think is very instrumental in noticing what's been going on with this market. Because again, remember a good portion of August, these were your market leaders, right? Those areas that I just mentioned. So very interesting. I mentioned aerospace and defense. Take a look at what AXON has been doing. Really nice move today out to new highs. This is another name that I put on our watch list. Just basically how this works for the watch list. You could see the names in gray. So every weekend I review the current watch list and I decide which names should stay on that watch list, and then I go through and I add new names. And I did that. That brings us over here to the weekend. And then, of course, I add names through the week, right? And that's basically how this watch list works. But notice I added AVAV, AVAV and NAXON just the other day, 2 days ago. I added that. I also added things like the home builders and DVA, which I took a trade in. So, that's another one that's acted really well. Before I get to that chart, one of my favorite names in this space, FTAI. Look at this making a nice move back above the its value area. So again, very, very impressive to see multiple different areas. I don't just trade, the hottest stocks and out there. I basically try to look at whatever stock it is and what group it's in, and whether it's been having strong earnings, and whether it's a trend, right? So DVA has been super strong, had this moving average crunch where the 5 moving average met the 20 and price kind of accelerated once those two things happened. A couple other names that I wanted to go over with you. GEV, look at this candle, right? This is another name that I've been talking about over the last week that showed amazing relative strength. When the market was going down, this name was not. This name was actually climbing. Again, the market will give you clues like that in terms of what's going on. We talked about a few other names. SN, right? Look at this thing, continues to move higher. It's another name that showed all kinds of relative strength last week. Right, so you get the theme, like looking for names that are showing that relative strength, especially when the market is particularly weak. A couple of names that I'm watching, or that I got long this BLDR. I sent this out as a trade idea the other day when it got above the value area. Today I pulled the trigger on this one, and ultimately looking for this to climb up to this VPOC up here. But for now, I took a target in this one. Another one more speculative that I'm watching for tomorrow is ASTS. Just looking at the risk to return here, keep an alert maybe at 27.52 and see if this thing can make a turn here back into the to the value area. All right, and we talked about Microsoft already. Core Z, very speculative. I didn't talk about gold. Before I talk about gold, just one other defense name here. This is GD. All right, now this thing broke out and it kind of failed on the first attempt, right? That's sometimes what happens on the first attempt when people like me are tweeting about it. You've got to kind of just watch what it does thereafter, and notice that it's been holding the breakout. I think this is a nice one to kind of speaking of lower volatility, right? This is going to be more of a grinding type name, but I think the chart looks pretty good here, and kind of an inverted head and shoulders type look. Left shoulder, head, and one of these you could say is your right shoulder. Again, these patterns are never perfect, but notice the neckline here and trying to break higher. So there's one other name I was going to mention too that I forgot to put an alert on this name. Sometimes I tweet out charts like real late at night, and I forget. I don't have my trading account open when I'm doing it, and that's where I usually place alerts. But look at the consolidation here: sideways, 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 and real nice break higher here. So very, very nice, and overall impressive. Costco, how could I forget this one? Talking about another name, right? That's out to new highs today and broke through its value area. I took a target in this one today, and the rest I'll have on for the for a possible breakout higher. Gold, right? I mean, look at this nice pattern here in GLD, right? We talked about how this was consolidating, 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 and look at it jump outside of the value area. So really impressive. We talked about this pre-market. Real nice move in AGI. This is Alamos Gold, and one more I'm going to move. I'm going to talk about too, which is Newmont, right? Which had a nice day today, but up 4% for this name, not extended. This is the first candle away from the consolidation, so very impressive there. All right, I will leave it there, guys. Tomorrow, Friday the 13th. One thing I would say too, right? Looking at all these charts, right? They look super, right, to see this price action the last couple of days. But the one thing I'm going to spread a little bit of caution here, and it's not because I'm trying to get clicks or something from a video or something, but just think about the seasonality, and I've talked a lot about seasonality, and that was very true to form. The first week of September was horrendous, and so it's important to kind of think about seasonality. It is a factor that you should have in your overall game plan, in my opinion, right? And that worked really well. Just keep in mind, and again, I've been showing this picture quite a bit, but go back to last year, right? You've had these starts and stops, right? And weaker seasonal month. This was the end of August. Did not take out the previous highs. Rallied a little bit, but stalled. Here was a nice rally, right? And this fooled a lot of people, right? Because everybody thought, hey, October's supposed to get stronger seasonally, right? Real nice rally, looked great, and then it stalled, and we took another leg lower. I'm not saying that that's going to happen exactly the same way, but I think that you want to be cognizant that the second half of September is the weakest part of September historically. All right. So again, I'm just giving you things that are out there. What do I do in those situations? I make small adjustments. I take targets. As I mentioned, I took a target in Costco. I took ONON off in my trading account, right? So by making these little adjustments, I'm kind of giving myself a little bit of cushion just in case that we do stall out here and not take out these highs, right? And start to move back down. Again, I'm not making a prediction. I don't do that. I think others feel like the need to make predictions every single day. It's almost like they're addicted to making predictions. All I'm doing is trying to follow my game plan and trying to find where there's a little bit of edge in this market and knowing some of those factors that are involved. Guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.